This is a Fox News alert. A steal at 50 billion smackers because TARP wasn't an expensive trap after all, at least not a hundreds of billions of dollars trap, so a deal. So Democratic Tennessee Congressman Steve Cohen says people should be thanking the president. Really, Congressman?
Well, I don't know about thanking the president. I think they need to thank President Bush, who put the TARP in place, and President Obama, who as a senator voted for it and then came up with the stimulus. You know, Mark Zandi, who was McCain's advisor on economics, and Alan Blender, a respected economist, said the combination of TARP and the stimulus saved us from a Great Depression. Krugman says we didn't go far enough. He's a Nobel Prize winner for economics, but certainly would have said we should have done what the president and the Democratic Congress did, and a couple of senators on the Republican side who saw that 40% of the stimulus was tax breaks, largest tax breaks in years, helped save over 3 million jobs and save the economy. So I would go with them and respect their opinion and think that the president, both Bush with the TARP and Obama with the ARRA, did a lot to save this economy.
Well, bottom line, we can argue about what could have been, should have been. We'll never know. We'll never know what would have happened had that money not been provided. We might have gone into a bigger meltdown. We might have crashed. And of course, things weren't all that hunky-dory.
But we can respect the Nobel Prize-winning economist,
by the way,
and we can respect Mark Zandi.
No, we can't, because these same Nobel Prize winners missed the whole financial meltdown. So let's look back at their track record. But leaving that aside,
Krugman is the Nobel Prize winner.
Yeah, I'm well aware of that.
He didn't miss it.
Yeah, he did. He did miss it. But I'm not going to argue the point about who got what, when, and where. I am going to argue about what's to brag about something costing only $50 billion. I mean, in this environment, I guess that's better than it used to be. But $50 billion is serious money.
Well, if it saved us from a second Great Depression, it was a bargain.
We don't know that, Congressman. We don't know that.
Well, you don't know it, but I respect the opinions of the economists, Zandi, McCain's economists.
But sir, you're arguing for something that you're still criticizing today. Banks refusing to lend, banks that were rescued not doing what we thought they would once they were rescued. So, yes, I guess a lot of them gave the money back to TARP, money that many of them didn't even ask for. They gave it back. You got a profit on that, touche to that. But if the goal was eventually to also get them lending and to reignite activity so we would see it in home sales and the like, we've not seen that. Now, that is a success story. Show me a failure.
I think we're seeing it more in community banks. I had a community bank individual come up to me today and thank me and how much it did for community banks. You've seen more lending in small banks, banks with $1 billion or less in assets than larger banks. But the small banks have been helped.
Yeah, but
the automobile
where
industry,
we
saved 1 million jobs. I'm looking at community banks here in Tennessee and community banks around the nation. They are starting to lend. The economy's moving. I've been telling you the Dow was going to do fine. We're at 10,828, and we've had a great September, and I see a good end of the year move.
You don't think any of the Dow's performance is optimism, or so many investors hope that things change in another 4 or 5 weeks in Washington?
Oh, I don't think so at all. I think they see this economy is improving. It's getting better. Wait.
You say it's improving. The GDP just got weakened a little bit. We've seen retail sales still essentially flat, car sales going nowhere, housing going nowhere, jobs and overall jobless rate worse than it was when the president took office. So what are you seeing that I'm missing?
But jobs are coming back.
Well, they might be coming back, but the unemployment rate is not.
It's better than it would have been if it weren't for the TARP and for the AARP. According to the experts, it'd be 15%. And Neil, to take your position, we wouldn't know if Germany would have faltered and become a wonderful country if we wouldn't have sent troops over there.
Well, fine, but that's
what you just
emphasized my point, Congressman. There's a lot we can have conjecture about what would have happened, what could have happened, maybe had we not done this. I've heard it from Republicans and Democrats who voted for TARP, but by saving the banks, we saved capitalism as we know it. Many argue that right after that, we set up a wave of bailouts. We went from too big to fail to too many not to give money to. So we set up a whole new set of expectations where if you're in trouble, Uncle Sam is going to rescue you. And is that
only in certain circumstances?
Is that the legacy? Is that the legacy you want?
We now have a financial reform law that's very important and will be repealed for the benefit of Wall Street if the Republicans take over. And the middle class has got to look out. They are better off with the Democrats who look out for the middle class.
That financial reform law you're bragging about leaves out Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. Many could argue on both sides of the aisle, sir, the very culprits to the financial crisis that ensued. And they got a pass.
There was a hearing on Fannie and Freddie Wednesday. There'll be action taken, I'm sure, to result in some major action on Fannie and Freddie. But the fact is, the middle class has always been the target
on Monday,
of benefits
I'm going to
from
start
the Democrats,
eating salad.
Social Security and Medicaid.
I'm telling you, the reality is you gave a pass to the very culprit of this entire crisis. And the reason why Americans, when they're questioned on this, and you're tipping a hat to TARP, and you're fair to do that, but the reason why they don't share your zeal and they don't share your glee, and 86% of them feel that the economy is still rotten, and 7 out of 10 CEOs still feel they have no reason to spend and expand, is because they're not optimistic. They don't see the government getting out of their way. They don't see regulations easing. They don't see taxes easing. They don't see the environment improving. So either they're on something or you're on something.
I think they look for the days when there were no controls. The CEOs have gotten tremendous salaries. They're not worried about increasing their salaries and their bonuses. They're only concerned about hiring more people and investing in the American public.
Are you talking to the same voters who want to see a complete changeover in Congress, whether they want Republicans or Tea Partiers or anyone but the incumbents that are in there? Are we seeing the same earth?
You have to have an answer.
Yeah,
you have to have a solution.
Your solution is the one that has been rejected soundly by voters right now, and might be soundly so in another 4 weeks, right?
Well, it's unfortunate. You know, the voters
rejected
what the Democratic Congress did in 1994 by balancing the budget. And it was the last balanced budget we had, and that was in a heroic Congress, all Democrats, and they balanced the budget with President Bill Clinton. Sometimes actions like that aren't seen for what they are for years to come. And I'm afraid the poll you showed indicates that the people who've been listening to this show and other shows on Fox aren't reading the Krugmans, they're not reading the Zandys, they're not reading the Blenders.
Wait a minute,
and they don't
you
understand
quote Mark
the reality
Zandys of
that
Moody's.
Bush
I know you
and
might
Obama
have,
together saved
you might
us
have
from
a
going off the
fondness for
precipice
Paul
that Bush
Krugman at the New York Times.
us to go to the cliffs.
I'm telling you. You mentioned Mark Zandy of Moody's, right? Your new hero, and that's fine. But Mark Zandy was among those who said, you know what, on these tax cuts and extending them for certain folks versus other folks, he'd extend them for everyone. He doesn't think now is the time to be raising taxes on anyone. Since you like Mark Zandy, think highly of Mark Zandy, do you agree with that?
I do. I don't agree. I agree with him on 98% of it. And you agree with somebody on 98%, that's pretty strong. To go to the last 2%, the people making over $250,000 will cost this country $700 billion toward the deficit. I'm concerned about the deficit. The Democrats are concerned about the deficit.
Why are you suddenly concerned about a deficit
if you're going to deal with the deficit,
when we just voted on
and you can't give $700 billion to the richest people in this country?
First of all, you're talking about a 1 or 2 year extension at $35 billion a year for doing so. So we'll leave out the 10-year thing because no one thinks they can be made permanent. But back to this renewed zeal and religion on the deficit. Where was this religion when you guys were, approving one emergency appropriation after another to the tune of hundreds of billions of dollars? Then it didn't matter whether these were deficit busters. Now suddenly it does?
Well, Warren Buffett's pretty smart too. And Warren Buffett said we needed to spend that money, we need to stimulate the economy. Keynesian.
So wait a minute,
Busting
busting the deficit. No, wait a minute. Think of what you're saying. I don't care who you're quoting.
And we're going to deal with it. We got a pay-go rule in effect where we can't spend without.
I could quote Mahatma Gandhi right now. I'm telling you, you either find deficits bad or you don't. Now, you can quote Warren Buffett. I can quote Superman and the Green Hornet if you want. I'm telling you, not too long ago, you guys are saying these emergency measures didn't matter because this was warranted, even if it meant more red ink. Now you're saying, wait a minute, we got to cool it on the red ink. It's like you've had a drunken party, and now you're waking up to say, geez, you know what, we drank too much.
No, because we didn't. It was the Republican Congress that spent monies in the war in Iraq, the war in Afghanistan, and gave the richest people in this country tax breaks that were unconscionable.
Just Republicans did that.
The Clinton balanced budget to go off the cliff.
Did that.
Mostly Republicans. There were some Democrats, but a minority of Democrats and almost the entire Republican team. Lockstep.
All right. Congressman, thank you very much.
You're welcome, Neil. Good to be back with you.
Meanwhile,